Okay, everybody, welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 36. Tonight's show's got a bit of a variety to it, as it turned out. I didn't have any idea what I was doing other than Montana Rail Link a couple days ago, but things kind of fell together with some other stuff. I am going to mute everybody right now. If I can find the mute button. Mute all. There we go. So anyhow, we're going to start off on the show with my first Pete Laro Lighthouse tour. It was 10 years ago in southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and it was cold. It was cold. We had wind chills down below zero. Actual temperatures around 12 degrees. When you're out all night, it gets chilly. Then we're going to do some Montana Rail Link. Montana Rail Link, of course, as most of you probably know, they lease trackage from BNSF Railway, and they are going to terminate that lease early, which means Montana Rail Link possibly within the year will go away. And then we got just a handful of current event photos to wrap things up. So to get started, let me get the chat called up here. There we go. And I'm going to share screen. And away we go with our program. Okay, we're going to start off with some lighthouses heading up to southern New England. Our first stop was Castle Hill Lighthouse in Newport, Rhode Island. Bitter cold, icy rocks, a lot of fun. And as usual, if anybody has any comments or questions, I'm happy to take those during the show. The best way to unmute yourself is to just press your space bar down on your computer, ask your question, make your comment, and release the space bar. Castle Hill at Newport was our first stop, as I said. We did some night stuff there on the icy rocks, went back in daytime to get shots as well. With the Beavertail Lighthouse, we spent the night here in our cars so we could be ready for sunrise. So we shot into the night and then got a few hours of sleep in our freezing cold cars. But it was worth it because next morning we were up right at sunrise to start shooting. And we shot the other direction than the lighthouse as well that morning. This is Goat Island Lighthouse, also in Newport. This is upriver from the other two. The Beavertail and the first lighthouse you saw are pretty much opposite sides of the harbor from each other. This is a little further up. Heading over to Martha's Vineyard. This is East Chop Lighthouse. And if you have an East Chop, you must have a West Chop as well.
Were these all on the same trip, Steve?
These are on the same trip. This is all from 2012, just about a year ago now. Yeah, this is my first Pete Laro Lighthouse tour, and we got some really interesting stuff coming up here story-wise in a minute or two.
Yeah, I'm actually doing my first Laro Lighthouse in April.
Good. I'll be there. Yep. Head Lighthouse. This is also Martha's Vineyard. This lighthouse here was in danger of falling into the bay because of erosion. It has since been moved back several hundred feet from the shoreline. Another interesting aspect of these photos is somehow I managed to misplace all the original files on an external hard drive somewhere, and I haven't found the hard drive they're on yet. So all the photos you're seeing here are actually rescues I pulled back down off of Facebook. Eventually, I will find the original photos. I'm pretty sure they still exist somewhere.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, Bob.
Can't you get the originals off your cloud provider?
They went away before I was on the cloud. And I was short on hard drive space. I was juggling things around between hard drives and somehow didn't juggle enough. But odds are there's an old hard drive floating around somewhere that has all this stuff on it that I retired. But I never throw hard drives out. All I got to do is find the right hard drive, fire it up, and away we go. We're on Nantucket now. And we got off the ferry and we come to the sign. It says duck crossing. Well, that's interesting. Well, darn if as we just approached the crossing, all of a sudden ducks start popping out from our left. And they go waddling across, no more than 2 or 3 across, mostly single file. And there must have been 200 ducks that came across here. We were actually 3 or 4 cars back in the lineup here. We jumped out of our cars and ran forward and got a photo of the duck crossing. But that was kind of cool. This is Sankaty Lighthouse. How do you pronounce it, Doug? Sankaty?
Sankaty.
Sankaty. I never heard anybody pronounce it. Sankaty Lighthouse. And some typical, we're on Cape Cod here. This is some typical Cape Cod houses.
Very Nantucket style.
Yes. Okay, Great Point Lighthouse. This was where we had the most interesting time. Pete told us it would be about a half-mile drive on the beach to get up to Great Point.
Huh.
And we were going to go up to Great Point. We were going to shoot some daytime stuff, get in the car, come back out for dinner, and go back in for night stuff. So I was about 20 minutes behind the first 2 cars. When I got to the beach, and off I went on the beach, and we caught up with the second of the 2 cars. It was actually a large pickup truck, crew cab pickup truck. They were stuck on the beach with the tide coming in about a mile up, and they couldn't get out. So we stopped, helped dig them out. Off we went. My car got stuck another mile later. We got that dug out. We finally got up to Nantucket, up to the Great Point. And we decided at that point, we're not going back out again. We are going to stay here for the night, shoot sunrise in the morning, and then go out. We're not going to go back and forth and back and forth. Okay, that left the problem of dinner because there is no place to eat anywhere around the lighthouse. So we pooled our resources, and dinner that night turned out to be beer and crackers. That's all we had. Brant Point Lighthouse. We're still on Nantucket. And we did manage to get to a store. We had a little bit of bread, so we tried to lure in some gulls to pose in the photo for us.
A true photographer. Didn't think about feeding yourself. Thought about photo props.
That's right. This is Nauset Lighthouse. We're heading up to Cape now, up Cape Cod. If you ever buy the Cape Cod potato chips and there's a lighthouse on the bag, that's the lighthouse.
I want to interject a little story of my own there, Steve.
Certainly, Doug.
With this one, before this light was moved, and it was moved inland, probably a quarter mile at least. The beacon at night used to bounce off my bedroom window when I lived on the Cape.
Oh, cool. Cape Cod Lighthouse, also known as Highland Lighthouse in North Truro. We're still actually out in the Cape. Interesting skies coming in. And we were there for sunset as well. We spent the night at Southeast Lighthouse on Block Island. One of my favorite lighthouses. It's a private residence now, but Pete arranges for all the details, and we got permission to spend the night here. And we did some night photos, and then next day we got some daylight photos as well. One of my favorite lighthouses, really cool brick lighthouse with the attached keeper's house.
Yeah, that one was moved within a month after Nauset Light was, or Cape Cod Light Highland, one of the two of them. It was moved by the same company within the same time frame.
Wow. And this is North Lighthouse on Block Island. This was going to be a long walk from where we could park the car to get to it. The wind was howling. It was still around 10 degrees. And we decided, nope, we're going to settle for long telephoto shots, and maybe someday we'll get back here some other time. There is a limit. Then on the way home after the tour, I had to go past Mystic anyhow, so I stopped off and got a shot of the Mystic Lighthouse in Connecticut. All right, that's going to bring us up to Montana Rail Link now. I've been to Montana Rail Link twice. Once for a day, that was back in 2000, and then once for about 3 days, and that was in 2008. Or not, yeah, 2008. So it's been a while since I've been there, and of course it's going away now. So the question is, am I going to get back there again or not? That's a good question. I really don't know. I'm trying to get my chat window open here. Let's see here. Anyhow, the reason I went the first time in 2000 was for the semaphores. They were located between around St. Regis and Paradise, Montana, on the near the west end of Montana Rail Link, close to the Idaho border. Just looking for my chat window. I don't know if I can find it here or not. First day we only had like I said, the first year 2000 we only had a day there, and semaphores were the target. And of course, everybody who went there back then shot these two little shorty semaphores located in St. Regis. Montana Rail Link has always had more traffic from Burlington Northern and, of course, its successor, BNSF Railway, than its own traffic going over the line, which is one reason why BNSF is taking it back. Today, BNSF provides 90% of the traffic going over Montana Rail Link. It wasn't quite that bad back in 2000. So here we see a BNSF train with a leader still painted for Burlington Northern coming past one of the semaphores. And we did get some Montana Rail Link power going by a semaphore. Montana Rail Link has always had some cooler, older power. Here we see what the roster says is a GP19-1. I'm not sure if that's how accurate that is. But they've always had SD40 and SD45 variants running around, which made them really interesting. And if you can't get a Montana Rail Link leader on a train, well, a Santa Fe War Bonnet is a worthy runner-up choice. Still in pure Santa Fe, following the 1996 merger between Santa Fe and Burlington Northern that created BNSF Railway. And there's numerous bridges over the Clark Fork, such as this one here. This lash up is kind of unique. There's 4 matching locomotives. They're all painted in a somewhat rare Burlington Northern paint scheme. The Grinstein paint scheme was called in honor of one of BN's presidents. These units were initially ordered for Powder River coal and eventually wound up in the general freight pool. But you can find quite a few of these back in the Powder River Basin back in the early 1990s. To get 4 together, though, was pretty rare. And a more typical BNSF Railway locomotive leading. All these semaphores are now gone. This is one of the last. At the time, there was probably only 2 stands of semaphores left. This one here and the stand that's still there over Raton Pass in New Mexico. The string of semaphores on the former Erie main line in southern New York State had gone away just a little before this. And here we are in Paradise. My tour guide for the day was Bruce Kelly. He used to work for Railfan magazine. He was associate editor. In fact, I took his place when he moved back to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And he was my tour guide for the day. And he kept asking me, have you seen these shots taken by Alan Burns? You know, we can try some of these shots that Alan's taken. I had never seen any of the Alan Burns shots. For some reason, I don't know why, because he's a very good photographer. So Bruce kept talking about these about you know, Alan Burns shot here and Alan Burns shot there, and okay. Well, this train pulls up and the door opens up. The engineer gets out and it's Alan Burns, of all things. So here's Bruce getting a photo of Alan in front of the freight he just brought in at Paradise. That brings us up to my trip in 2008. We spent 3 days there. Now, as everybody knows, I am terrible at taking notes. So I know we based our trip a lot around the area around Helena, both sides of Helena. And we must have done some stuff out of Livingston as well, because I got some shots here that I know are taken in near Livingston. But a lot of this is going to be like, I need to sit down with a map and Google Earth and go through these photos and really identify where they are. And if anybody recognizes any locations, let me know. This may actually be in Missoula, but I'm not positive about that. There's a line that swings south off of the MRL main line at Missoula, and I think this train is taking that, although this also could be Laurel on the other end of the railroad. And once again, mostly BNSF trains on Montana Rail Link. This, I know where it is. This is Columbus. Stations are great. You don't need to take careful notes when you got stations with station signs on them. And no semaphores, but they do have these also as almost equally cool searchlight signals. These are getting pretty rare these days too. So off we go chasing this train with the Burlington Northern Leader. Couple of wood and grain elevators. Of course, if you saw my show from showed about Saskatchewan last time or the time before, you know how much I like wood and grain elevators. This is at West End, which is up the grade from Livingston. So I know this is in the Livingston area. Actually up the grade from Bozeman, so the top of Bozeman Hill going east, I think. Yes. It's probably a westbound, now I think about it. You can see they realigned the tracks through here. New tunnel, this helper set coming out of it. With some of their new engines, they're SD70 ACEs. And the old alignment, old tunnel in the background there. This is probably coming up up the hill out of Livingston. You can see the grade here working its way up out of the valley. And another train up at West End. Auto rack train. And we chased him as the sun was setting. Here's some of those older diesels that Montana Rail Link had. These are actually pushers on the back of a train going up the hill. It wasn't too uncommon to see the modern, newer SD70 Aces on the front of the train, and the older SD40s and 45s pushing the back. Here's the head end with the two new engines on it. In this shot here, this is the back of the train you're seeing. You can see the entire train. The older engines in the back here pushing, and look way up around the curve there, you see the newer engines in the lead. It's not that long of a train, but the grade is pretty severe. So you can tell by all the power that's on this train. This is a location known as Muir, and this is just west of Livingston. And this is the other end of the tunnel at West End. This is actually the helper set that's cut off. The train is gone through the tunnel. The helper set is cut off the rear, ready to go back down the hill. And I got a coal train coming up here, BNSF power on it. Just to show you what kind of grade this is, tacked in the middle are 3 of the newer Aces. And on the end is one of the Greenstein BN locomotives. A lot of power to push this coal train uphill. Here's our helper set we just saw up at the tunnel coming back down the hill. Back down into Livingston. Here's our coal train again. Not sure exactly where this is, but it might be the beginning, the east end of Lombard Canyon. And we'll see a little more of Lombard Canyon here in just a bit. I think now we are in Helena, the state capital of Montana. Here we see a couple of former EMD Oakway leasers. They're called Oakways because that was the, I guess that was the financing arm that they were leased to Burlington Northern. But anyhow, their EMD built them and leased them out. They didn't sell them to the railroad. And these were also prevalent in the Powder River Basin in the 80s and 90s. And this is definitely Helena because there's the station with a sign on it, train coming up out of Helena. Out of Helena going west, there's a pretty steep grade up to Blossburg. Unfortunately, there was track work every single day west of Helena that didn't clear up until 4 o'clock. So our first westbound train going up the hill didn't get out of town until 4 o'clock each day. So we chased him up. And this is approaching Skyline Trestle, one of the scenic highlights on the line. Still working upgrade. There's Skyline down there with our train on it. We tried this 3 different days, once again, with all 3 days with the work window ending at 4 o'clock. This was the only train that got the Skyline Trestle without shadows coming in. And here he is crossing the Continental Divide up at Blossburg. He goes through a tunnel here, which is just around the curve, and you'll see that in just a minute or two. Another train coming up out of Helena. Once again, you can see the grade here. It's pretty impressive. Our former Oakway leasers on the point. With 4 locomotives cut in the middle. And the sun is setting. He's working up towards Skyline Trestle, but alas, he wouldn't make it before the sun trestle went in the shadows. Here's a helper set of 6 engines coming back down the hill. And that's on the horseshoe curve. It's all the same train wrapped around there. You can see the back of the train in the background. They were chasing this guy here with the two of the aces on the point. Now we're getting into Lombard Canyon. Place called Toston, which is actually just railroad west of Lombard, geographically north. Had a flat tire here, which is not uncommon for folks going back into Lombard Canyon, apparently. Fortunately, we noticed the flat tire pretty much as we pulled up to the scenic overlook here. So there was no rush to change the tire and, listen as the train you wanted to shoot rumbled by below you over the cliff and you couldn't shoot it. We were able to just take our time changing the tire without having to worry about missing anything. Milwaukee Road. Yes.
Can you still go to there? I heard some of that area has been private property now and they don't really want you up there.
I really don't know. Like I said, I've been back there for years. I thought it was all public roads back through there when I was there, but I'm not positive if that's changed since I was there. The Milwaukee Road used to run through this area as well. The last of the transcontinentals to be built, the first one to be abandoned because it took had to go the hard way because all the easy ways were taken. There's still remnants of the Milwaukee scattered all over Montana and Washington State. Back at Toston again. I believe we are along the Missouri River at this point. Great area for photography. Unfortunately, this is all east of Helena, so it wasn't affected by the track work going on to the west. Grain train. This shot here, okay. This is that grain train you just saw in the last shot. I thought we could beat it easily to East Helena. So I had seen the depot here earlier, and I really wanted to get a shot here. But traffic conspired. The train wasn't moving that fast. Traffic conspired against us, though. And we were out on that road there you see behind the train, coming the same direction the train's going. We had to make the left-hand turn to get here to the depot. And the left-hand turn lane goes to red whenever a train is nearby. This train's crawling at this point. Must be going up grade. It's crawling at this point. But anyhow, we get to the left-hand turn lane and the light's red. And it's not going to change. Now, I'm not saying we did anything here, but theoretically, you could make the left-hand turn on the red arrow if nobody was looking. Theoretically, you could pull up to the tracks where the gates were down. Once again, theoretically, and notice the train is still way down the tracks going about 10 miles an hour. And you could theoretically cross the tracks and get this photo. Train coming back up out of Helena again. Once again, the searchlight signals, way cool. I took them for granted back then. I really shouldn't have, but they weren't quite as endangered as they are now. That's the back of the train with the pushers. Train with MRL power, Montana Rail Link power on it. Always cool to get. And we're back in, I believe we're back in Helena again. Once again, a train going past searchlight signals. And this train heading uphill, I believe. Colorful locomotive consist on the point. Chasing the upgrade. Hoping it gets the skyline trestle before it shadows in. 4 units cut into the middle. Nice match set. And back at Blossburg, we were a little further up at the Continental Divide crossing earlier in the show. Now we're back closer to the tunnel. All that smoke you see in the background is diesel exhaust caused by those 4 engines on the front of the train pulling hard through that tunnel. They just spew out all this black smoke as they exit. That leaves the poor helper crew in the back. They're you can see as they come out of the tunnel, the black smoke has only increased because their smoke's joining it. The helper crews have to wear oxygen masks going through this tunnel because it's just you just can't breathe because of the smoke the lead units put out. Skyline Trestle would have been before Blossburg, but that was in shadow. But Blossburg being way up on the mountain, that was still in sunlight. And then we chased on. Now they're up in the higher elevations and get some sun. We chased on into this with the setting sun. We've probably worked our way as far as Missoula now. We're going to continue westward because we had this is actually part of a 8 or 9 or 10 day trip, big circle out of Spokane, where we followed the BNSF main line, the High Line across Montana, shot up into Canada for a day or 2 or 3 on the prairie. Did the Great Western Railway short line in Canada, then dropped back down to Montana Rail Link, followed it westward back towards Spokane. Spent a day on the Camas Prairie Rail Net before it went away. A railroad chock full of high trestles. I'll have to show those shots one of these shows. But we're heading back towards Spokane now. And yes, we are. And this is back at St. Regis, where he had started the show with shots from 2000. This is the gas local. They run 2 gas locals a day on Montana Rail Link. It hauls natural gas, as the name implies. The reason the gas local runs is because there is a Native American land in this area, fairly expansive. And the Native American tribe that controls the land refused to allow a pipeline to be built through their land. So all the natural gas that gets pulled up out of the ground winds up on the gas local to head to the refinery or wherever it is that gas winds up. So that's literally a rolling pipeline. And here's our gas local. Somehow he's picked up 2 gondolas along the way, probably for maintenance. A couple more odds and ends freights. As we're now chasing westward back towards Idaho and our date with the Camas Prairie Rail Net the next day. And once again, we're back to one of these bridges. You saw this earlier from the trip in 2000 over the Clark Fork. I believe the arches were added later. This was built as a straightforward truss bridge with the arches added later to strengthen the bridge for heavier loads. And that concludes Montana Rail Link. I got a couple of quickie current event photos here. The big thing around here has been Amtrak's anniversary engines. They painted up 6 engines for Amtrak's 50th anniversary. And 2 of them have been hanging around this area on the Pennsylvanian, running between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Here we see unit number 108 in the Amtrak Phase 6 paint scheme. Apparently, other than the 50th anniversary logo, this is going to become Amtrak's standard paint scheme in the future. The blue with the red hood. This train is on the former Pennsylvania Railroad main line in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, heading east, crossing over the Brandywine River. Down below, under the locomotive, is the Reading Company's former Wilmington and Northern branch. And there's a steel mill just off behind me and to the left. This was taken with a drone. Caught up with the 108 again. I had to go to Pittsburgh, fast out and back trip, but I timed it so I could pick up both Pennsylvanians on the way out. Here we see the eastbound Pennsylvanians at Cove, Pennsylvania, just the railroad west of Harrisburg. And on the back end is a Pennsylvania Railroad private car, now privately owned. Someone riding in luxury back there for sure. And then I got to Huntington, where Hunt Tower has been preserved by the town. And here we see Amtrak number 100, another 50th anniversary locomotive in the one-time only midnight blue paint scheme. This will be the only unit that I know of that'll get the midnight blue. Heading west to Pittsburgh. Next morning, I got up early. I knew this train would turn around in Pittsburgh overnight, leave Pittsburgh at 7:30 in the morning. And one shot I'd always wanted was the shot coming under the George Westinghouse Bridge in the Pittsburgh suburbs. So I picked that up the following morning. And with that, that is going to wrap up Wednesday Night Slides number 36. Let me sign off here for the folks on YouTube. This will be on YouTube if you want to see it again for some reason later tonight. And the next show is going to be, let me get my calendar in front of me here and see when I can do this. Next show is going to be February 16th, hopefully, if I can get my act together in time. February 16th, Wednesday night. So with that, that will be a wrap. And